What's good, YouTube? It's your boy OG Boy, and I got a special one for you today. This team can be considered among the most toxic teams that you can run in the Great League. So we have an XL Pokemon, which a lot of people think is pay to win, and then you got two Charmers, and you know how people feel about Charmers. So I guess the theory behind this team is the Diggersby in the front is good against the Steels and the Poison types, which the two Charmers in the back are weak to. And then obviously, like, you got the ABB style, so you got one of the Charmers to bait out, like the Charm counter in the back. So yeah, and these games were played like pretty high elo at the time. So this was when Great League was still kind of new and like people were just starting to hit veteran. And yeah, I was playing some pretty high level opponents. So let's get into it. My first game was against Scafo, who is one of the best battlers in the world and ended 69 on the leaderboards last season. So we're met by a Sableye, and how I like to play this matchup is I throw an Earthquake and then tank a move and swap into a Alolan Ninetales after. Because I either want to get a shield or damage the Sableye and get an extra Charmin before they swap out. So here I'm waiting for him to throw before I swap out so that I don't have to tank a return on my Alolan Ninetales. So now I'm swapping out and we're met by a Registeel, which is terrible for us. Sometimes you can actually flip this matchup if you don't get debuffed by the Zap Cannon and if they swap in immediately, but at this point we've already taken a couple Shadow Claws worth of damage and we're about to get debuffed here, so that's gonna not be too good for us. So at this point, we're in a pretty bad position because he's just gonna farm us all the way down, and he's gonna have a Focus Blast ready for our Diggersby when it comes in. So yeah, he's gonna farm me all the way down, and at this point I have to decide whether I want to shield or not. And I decide that I'm going to shield because I figure that my Diggersby probably has a lot of play, considering it's good against the Sableye, and we're not going to get the alignment that we want anyways, because we're going to lose swap here. So I immediately swap into the Wigglytuff, and we're met by a Nidoqueen in the back, and that's basically a GG. Not too much we could have done there in that game. Yeah, not too much I could have done differently. So our next opponent was also on the leaderboards at the end of last season. So let's see how I play this. I think this was a mistake immediately swapping into the Alolan Ninetales because Diggersby actually has a pretty good matchup against Deoxys. Like, the Deoxys can only do super effective damage with the counters, but he can't really throw like the Psycho Boost right away unless he plans on swapping out, because then he'll debuff himself and the Thunderbolts don't really do that much damage. So he swaps in his Diggersby, and at this point I'm not really going to try to fight for swap because I'm already shield down, and both my Diggersby and my Wigglytuff do about the same against the Deoxys. But we're in a pretty bad spot here because we're likely going to have to tank an Earthquake before we're able to get rid of this Diggersby. So I don't even click my Fire Punch here because my Diggersby is pretty high ranked. So I'm going to lose CMP. So I just decide to tank the move, and I throw a few more Mud Shots just to overfarm a little bit before taking it out. I didn't even want to tank a Fire Punch, so I could have honestly farmed up a little bit more, but so here I throw the Earthquake, and it's going to be kind of unfortunate if he shields, which he ends up shielding. And at this point we're in a pretty bad position because he's going to Psycho Boost, which I elect to shield because I figure if he's staying in with the Deoxys, like, he might have something weak against the Diggersby, or I mean the Wigglytuff in the back, but it turns out it's a Lickitung, and with the shield up, like, it's a pretty bad position for us to be in. So yeah, this game is basically over at this point. He's just gonna, take out my Wigglytuff, and then he actually does a pretty good play here where he is over farming pretty significantly. So he has a body slam, and then once my Diggersby comes in, he has a power whip. Jesus Christ, a power whip ready for the Diggersby. And then he BMs me with the snipe. So that's tough, Like, no one likes to lose like that. But GG's to the opponent. Alright, next match, we're met with a Trevenant lead. And this lead is pretty good for us because it takes them 10 Shadow Claws to get to 2 Seed Bombs, while it only takes us 9 Mud Shots to get to 2 Fire Punches. And 2 Fire Punches just about take out a Trevenant. Usually they do shield one of the Fire Punches, but if they don't shield one of the Fire Punches, you're able to swap in your Ninetales and like snipe down the Trevenant before it can like get off another move. I mean, they could technically get off another move if they respond quick enough, but yeah, in this case, in a lot of times that I've played this matchup, like they don't. So now they bring in a Dunsparce, and honestly, even though Rollout is doing super effective damage to the Ninetales, like it doesn't do too much damage. And I know that they're gonna get off some Rock Slides on us, but I'm fine with just letting these through because my Diggersby and my Wigglytuff in the back should have a good matchup against a Dunsparce. And now they bring in their own Alolan Ninetales, so I believe Wigglytuff is the best answer here because we should be able to farm them all the way down while only taking one move. And this is just going to be Weather Ball. I honestly maybe could have shielded this, since by the time I did farm them down, like we are pretty low. So I'm forced to immediately swap into the Diggersby because I don't want to get farmed down and I don't know if I'm going to make it to the move. And from this range, a Earthquake isn't actually going to kill. There's a case to be made that like I could have baited, but in this case, they didn't shield it, so I made the right call. But I think it was just a safer play because even if they did shield that, I would have had to get to like another Earthquake anyways, and I think between the Mud Shot damage and like being able to do an extra charm on the back end, that going 2 Earthquakes was a lot safer of a play. Because if they shielded or didn't shield a Fire Punch, then I probably would have been screwed. And yeah, so that's a GG's to them. Alright, so we're met by a Medicham lead, which is obviously pretty bad for us, so I immediately swap into the Alolan Ninetales, and they bring in a Lickitung. So what I'm thinking at this point is, like, winning swap is very important, because I do not want my Diggersby lined up against the Medicham, and typically with this team, you'll see either a Diggersby or, more commonly, like an Alolan Ninetales in the back, and that would be like the Scafo team. So I've already committed 1 shield, and I should be able to farm them all the way down before they get to another move. And I'll like comfortably survive whatever this is. And they bring in the Medicham, which leads me to believe that whatever's in the back is probably, even weaker to Charm. And they even let this move through, so by the time they counter down my Alolan Ninetales, they're actually like, below half health. So I figure, the Wigglytuff is probably going to be pretty valuable, so I decided to shield this in case it was a Psychic, but it ended up being an Ice Punch, and then this is pretty, like, sketchy for us now, because it ended up being a double in the back. But at this point, I'm thinking I'm just gonna go straight Fire Punch because they're likely gonna shield since they have 2 shields left, and even if they don't shield, the chip damage from the Fire Punches will make it easier for my Diggers or my Wigglytuff to charm down the double in the back end. So I'm just gonna play out this matchup, and I'm able to get to 2 more Fire Punches. So the chip definitely helps. And at this point, the Wigglytuff's just gonna have to charm everything down. And the Wigglytuff just out here hitting him with the whoa, you know? Over and over again, kind of BMing him. And yeah, this game's over. So, GG's to the opponent. And this is the final match. We're leading into an Altaria, and to be honest, I usually lose Altaria leads because it's either Altaria, like Toxicroak, and then Registeel or Double Steel, which just is terrible for this line. But they bring in a Toxicroak, and I'm a noob, and I didn't really pay attention, and I wasn't counting, and that definitely was only a Mud Bomb, but I shielded it anyways, and I didn't have to throw this. But I'm anticipating a Registeel anyways, so I was like, you know, the energy's not going to be too useful. But it turns out that it's a Swampert, which is pretty interesting. Like, I haven't seen Swampert so much with this line. And they're even able to get another Mud Shot in before I go down, which is pretty bad for me. But at this point, like, I know I have to bring in the Diggersby because I need to save the Wigglytuff for the Altaria, and I need to tank some of this energy on the Diggersby before I bring in my Wigglytuff. So here I throw the Fire Punch, and you might be thinking, like, why didn't you just build up to the Earthquake and, like, threaten it or whatever? But at this point, I just want to get off as much chip damage as I can so that it's easier for my Wigglytuff to charm down both these Pokemon. But the opponent is actually making a pretty big mistake here, and they're throwing their Hydro Cannons right away. So they're not going to be able to get to 2 before I can charm them all the way down. So they're going to throw this one, and I know this does a lot more damage than like a Sky Attack and or a Moonblast. So I shield that. And now I just, you know, once again, Wigglytuff, hit him with the whoa. And yeah, doing what Charmers do, just charming the whole team all the way down. And we go 3-2 in this set, but this is just one set out of many that I played, and I had a lot of 5-0s, 4-1s, and my elo at the time was, again, very high for that point in the season when these games were played. But I wanted to show kind of like a balanced set, you know, some wins, some losses, and like the thought process behind it. So yeah, that's about it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.